welcome to everyone in our audience and also our virtual audience. My name is Tanya Traverso, and I'm the League of Women Voters. Your interest in this topic is timely and important. The League of Women Voters of the Aurora area is happy to have a wonderfully informed and interested presenter for tonight's program on redistricting, Mr. Damon Smith. Damon is the Community Outreach Director for Change Illinois, a nonpartisan nonprofit that champions ethics and efficiency in government and elections in Illinois, and serves as an associate minister for Chicago's Liberty Baptist Church. For over 29 years, Mr. Smith was the Vice President of Business Development for the Saline Group. He has been a community organizer for the Community Renewal Society and an adjunct professor at Columbia College, Chicago, specializing in technological tools for teaching and management. We are very lucky to have him here tonight. Many of you are here because you know that in a 10-year census that determines the number of U.S. representatives Illinois may send to Washington, D.C. The census numbers also affect the numbers and shape of Illinois' own state legislative districts. Each state has its own self-defined method of setting up congressional and legislative districts. We are here tonight to learn more about how Illinois selects districts and how it impacts its residents. Finally, Mr. Smith will give us an insight on how Illinois can do better at redistricting so we can make our voices heard. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Damon Smith.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Aurora, for having me here. And for the library. Tanya, thank you very much for that great introduction. Therese, thank you so much for allowing me to make constant contact. And Allie, I know you're going to be running back and forth, but thank you for all the technical support that we're going to have this evening. I'm joined this evening by my dear friend and colleague sitting at the back table, Roy Gilchrist, who may periodically chime in to fill in some cracks or sometimes just tell me, Damon, that's not quite right. Because he has some experience in this subject area as well. So don't worry, hear a voice from the back. So it's just my good friend and colleague, Rory Gilchrist. As mentioned, I am Damon Smith. One thing that was not in the introduction is that I'm a 15-year professor of Columbia College. So I love talking, I love speaking. Public spaces do not bother me. So I'm going to walk around a little bit as well. Don't worry. You're not going to be called on. There won't be there may be a pop quiz, I don't know. But we'll make this as fun and as enjoyable as possible. Let's talk about it. And I have a fancy tool here that allows me to walk around. Oh, and it works. All right, so your home, your community, your district. That's what we're going to talk about today. All right, and how the relationship between all these wonderful things and how they have an impact on your life because it controls and determines your government. We're going to skip the agenda introductions. We all know what Change Illinois is right now. Nonprofit organization that is nonpartisan, which means we love everybody and dislike everybody equally. Okay, so you won't hear a political agenda here. We are here to empower people, right, to make our government more effective, more efficient, and more accessible to all of the people of the state of Illinois. That is what we are here to do. We thoroughly enjoy doing this work. We do research, we do education, and we do advocacy to change laws, ordinances in Chicago, ordinances, legislation, things of that nature. So this is what we do. And we love what we do because as we all know, sometimes our government needs to be fixed. Just a little bit. Back to me, you heard enough about me, let's get to this. So, Change Illinois, we are not a monolith. We are part of a collaborative. We are not the only brilliant children in the room. We are part of the Illinois Redistricting Collaborative. These are all the other members of the collaborative. And we meet once every 2 weeks, in fact, we had a meeting today, about what we're planning for our next agenda, what are we going to do for our next campaign, what legislations are we working on and working on together. And if you notice, there is a wonderful group here, the League of Women Voters of the City of Chicago, and other chapters throughout the state. So thank you to the League of Women Voters Aurora area for welcoming us, partnering with us, and attending this event as well. If you are part of an organization or a church, synagogue, mosque, temple, or a block club, that wants to change and reform Illinois government, join us. There's no membership fee. There's no civics test to take. There's no blood samples you have to give. You just have to be committed to doing this work, right? You have to be committed to doing this work. This work is going to take some time because changing government is not easy. It's not quick. It requires lots and lots and lots of patience. So, having said having all questions at the end, let's have a conversation. Let's talk a little bit. First question. What's good government? Anyone? Transparent government, okay? What else?
Effective.
Effective government. Representative government. Anything else?
Listen to the people.
Inclusive, listens to the people, okay? Like all of them. How do you know when you have achieved good government?
When there is no oppression.
When there is no oppression. Okay?
There's justice.
When there's justice. Okay?
And to the justice, I would add for all, because,
For all.
yes,
Yes.
because sometimes some groups feel like they have justice while others don't. So,
Okay?
When the people are served.
When the people are served. You might have to know that. What else? Anything else?
When the will of the people matches what the government is.
When the will of the people matches what the government is doing. Okay? Like all of this. Why are you doing that to me?
You came out of.
I would say when people know who their elected officials are, all the way down to, you know, your state legislature or your county board or your, like all of those races down the ballot. When you know and in theory could call them up or send them a letter or go visit their office, that's one way to know you have good government.
How do you know when you have achieved good government? You don't know. So we know what the government is. We know what it's supposed to do. How do you know when you've gotten it?
When you've got some trust.
When you have some trust. Okay?
And it's never perfect. You're always trying to
It's never
work
perfect.
around the edges and make this small change or that small change. Hope you don't know major change.
Make no major changes, make a small change here and there, tweak it a little bit. Okay? Anyone else?
That's a tough one, because sometimes what you feel is good government, the next person may not feel is.
Ah, ha, ha. That is the point of this entire exercise.
Good job, Don.
There are roughly 12 people in this room and how many online, right? Every single one of you had a different answer to the same question. Imagine if you're legislators. How do you make good government? With how many legislators do you have in the state of Illinois?
500.
A little less. You gotta have less than Congress.
Well, plus,
So how many in the Senate, how many in the House?
200,
Roughly a little less than 200.
and then 75, 73 or something.
156, I believe is the number,
Is the total for all of them?
between the Senate and the House.
Oh, okay. That was way off.
So you got 156 people. Some Democrats, some Republicans, some independents, some Green Party, right? Some environmentalists, some religious folks, some non-religious folks. And you want them all to agree on what the government is. How's that happen, right? So our government is going to be messy. And some people are going to win sometimes, and some people are going to lose sometimes. At least we hope, right? When it comes to redistricting, which is what we're talking about today, the same rules apply. There is one perfect map of Senate and state districts here in Illinois. There actually is one. It's one that everyone can agree on. It's the perfect map because all the districts are the same size and serve the people. You ready?
No lines.
None. None. There's no way to draw a perfect map. regardless of where you sit, stand, squat on the aisle, or either side of the aisle, no matter what you believe, there's no perfect map. Every map does the very best that it can, or should. Illinois has a very unique way of drawing maps, which is what this says. In the mid-60s, the United States Supreme Court issued a series of rulings in an effort to clarify the standards for state legislative redistricting in Reynolds v. Sims. The court ruled that the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution demands no less than substantially equal state legislative representation for all citizens of all places, as well as all races. In the 1960s, race was binary, black and white. That's it. What does race mean today? Right? Population shifts every 10 years. We count the census. We're going to get to in a second, right? So our districts are supposed to reflect ethnicity, racial makeup, and population every 10 years. That's what's supposed to happen. And that is how Illinois is supposed to draw its state house districts, its state senate districts, and our U.S. congressional districts. That is what is supposed to happen, okay? We do this every 10 years because of the census. Every 10 years, the Constitution says we count people. Now, these annoying folk come knock on your door, fill out this paperwork, answer their questions, tell us who lives there, how many ages, gender, beliefs, all this good stuff, education, etc. And all this information is collected by the Census Bureau. And they take all of these numbers, this data, and then they send it to local governments so that they can make their district maps. All we so far, we make this really easy. Except what happened this last census? COVID. What did COVID do to our census count? Lowered it. Why?
People didn't want to answer the door.
People didn't want to answer the door. What else?
Not enough workers.
Not enough workers to go door knocking. What else? What else? The mail was slow for people who mailed in their census forms, right?
People were afraid of ICE.
People were afraid of the immigration services, right? The census counts people, not citizens. People, right? At least that's what it's supposed to do. But it failed dramatically. Now, we shut down when?
March of 20.
20? Or was it 19?
20.
20.
March.
Right?
Right after the primary.
Illinois should have said, hold the presses. Because there's no way we're going to be able to count people legitimately. Right? There's just no way. But we did not. We had a deadline to reach, and we reached our deadline. June 30th. June 30th. To have numbers in to the local governments and to our state government and to our state elected officials to draw district maps. Didn't have a choice. Who draws our maps for the state?
Legislators?
All 150?
No.
Which one?
The party who has majority in the House and Senate, I believe.
In Illinois, we're only going to talk about Illinois for now. The party in the majority selects its members of the map drawing committee to draw our maps. Period. That's the way we do things. These individuals would draw maps based on the numbers that they had, right? Present the maps to the governor then signs the maps. It's a signs the maps once they're voted on and passed. Okay? map before it was drawn?
I did.
How?
I went to a public hearing.
Oh, Roy, this is about to be real fun.
Yeah.
What is your name?
My name is Nicole.
Linda's perfect, 'cause I'm gonna pick you a lot, Linda.
Oh, okay. There were a couple other lead members there.
Don't worry, you're not going. Hold that thought for a minute. Let's see. Maps drawn by this committee. Oh, I'm sorry. When you went to go see a map, did you go to the map room?
No, they had,
You went to a hearing.
I went to a hearing,
And
and
when
we had computers that you could look at.
and you actually saw a map.
You know what? I did not see a map at
Stop
that,
right there.
I did not see a map at that meeting, but I did see maps on the internet from my phone.
Okay. Ooh, I thought it was going from the. All right. So, what makes a good district? How are districts supposed to look according to what we know? The ideal map. Nice circle or square shape. It is compact, contiguous, and it respects communities of interest, is what a good map does. This is a non-contiguous map. This is a non-compact map. This is not an equal map. And of course, we have to respect communities of interest. Now, communities of interest is the term that we are using that expands the ethnic and race question, right? Because it's not just your race or ethnicity. Foreign languages, religious communities, economic, right? Income. A community of individuals who are similar in how they believe or live, right, have to be protected. The reason why that is up there, because 90 to 95% of the time, those communities of interest are communities of color, or a marginalized or neglected community, like indigenous people. Indigenous, people, you can't call them citizens, all of them. Stay with that word citizen.
Residents.
Residents, thank you. Right? When you're talking this, you have to talk about people or residents, not citizens. Okay, so that is a community of interest. They must be protected. Why must they be protected? They have to be protected because we need to ensure as best we can that everyone has the opportunity to elect individuals of their choosing that represents them. That's our goal. As mentioned earlier, I do work in a church as a minister. My faith tells me that it should not matter what a person is or believes. They should do good government for their constituents. But I also grew up in Chicago, in Illinois. Representation matters. Representation matters. To see someone who you know comes from your community, who knows what you believe, who knows what your blocks or your districts are going through, without having to be explained over and over again. Why it's important for the street lights to be on so the children don't have to walk home from school in the winter months in the middle of the street. So they don't get snatched up between buildings because the sidewalks are dark. That shouldn't have to be explained, right? Or other situations like that, right? So that's the point of communities of interest, which is why they are a protected class.
Are they protected?
Yes. The term communities of interest,
Is it really?
communities of interest do exist. How they are protected is, what's that say up there?
Oh, why the current element part filter, okay, because I don't think communities of interest is mentioned. You can't pack them and you can't crack them, but you, well, go on.
Gerrymandering. The G word. This is a very nasty word. In its simplest terms, elected officials pick the individuals who will vote for them. Because I gave him such a great introduction. I'm going to open up this divider and split this room. And now only she will be able to see the presentation. Because I like her. And I know she likes me. And she's going to support my re-election campaign, fundraise for me, and knock on doors, and get petitions signed. The rest of y'all, Y'all didn't give me a great introduction. So I want. That's gerrymandering. I have now gerrymandered the room. The party that is in majority in our houses of government in this state draw maps that protect what every first term, second term, third term elected official wants. What's that?
Reelected.
Another term. That's what they're supposed to do. Well, no, that's not what they're supposed to do, but that's what they do. They gerrymander. They pick and choose who represents them. Right? So what does that do? What does gerrymandering do? Quickly, what does gerrymandering do?
Cheats.
It cheats? How?
Well, by packing, you want a long answer or a short answer?
I want whatever answer you want to give.
It cheats by packing minorities into maybe one district so that all the other districts turn out white. Or it takes a minority community and cuts it down the middle so it has very little say in either of the other districts. So that it's a way to cheat by drawing the line so you can win.
Okay, that works. What else?
And it makes it very hard to make a change.
Yes.
Yeah.
What kind of changes?
Well, if this compromised community doesn't have the best schools, doesn't have this, doesn't have that, doesn't have street lights on, I mean, if they don't have much power, how can they make change?
Let me take it real basic, because you're absolutely right. If I take this divider out and bring it right here, and this is not my district, what can't you do?
Well, I can go and talk to folks, but I'm not sure anything other than that.
Can't vote me out, what else can he do? Can't hear me? What else can he do?
You can't, well,
You can't run against me.
no.
I can draw out my competition.
Yeah, that's right.
Bye. Because you don't like me. Now, you may have used to live in the same district as I, and I've gotten on your last nerve. I show every meeting late. I never talk about your issues. I never do anything you want me to do. You say, I'm fed up. I know 20,000 people or 10,000 people or 5,000 people who will sign my petition. I'm gonna, no. We're gonna get rid of it.
Right.
This is the land of Lincoln. Guys, how do you feel about it? The Lincoln-Douglas debates were historic and monumental, important not only to the United States of America, but to this state, right? We are the home of great debates. If I draw you out, you have to say it. No one gets to challenge my ideas, my priorities, what I want to do for this district at all. There's no conversation. There are no challenges. I don't have to be better because I've drawn out all the people who hold me accountable. Right? That's not democracy. That's not what we're supposed to do. Right? That's what gerrymandering does. It gets rid of competition, stops the flow of robust debates and ideas and concepts, discourages people to run for office, right? Protects the elected officials' ability to win easily. Protects them. That's not what a democracy is supposed to do, right? So you got to get rid of gerrymandering. When there's no competition, there's no choice. 42 to 47% of the races in Illinois were unopposed. What? Unopposed. That's almost half of our legislature. Unopposed. Right? How is that a democracy? Right? When there is only one candidate who runs for office, they have no one to fear. And the public does not have a choice on whom to vote for. If you don't have a choice, you do not have a voice. And if you do not have a voice, You do not have any power. You don't have any power. And this is what they're counting on, which is why this process still exists. Linda, I'm pick on you now.
Okay.
For the state legislative map drawing sessions, the state of Illinois had 60 hearings across the state. 60. They collected 516 testimonies. And there were no public map drawing sessions. For congressional hearings, they had 15 across the state. 15. 245 testimonies were collected, and again, no public map drawing session. Now, what time was the hearing that you attended? What time did it start roughly?
You know what, I think it was around noon, and it was on a Sunday.
Really?
Was that right? Okay, yeah. And it was held at Phillips Park, and it was publicized, I believe, in our local newspaper, but very few people get that local newspaper anymore. I don't know where else it was publicized.
Yeah, I would say Facebook, but I don't think so.
The state of Illinois uses Facebook. That's what you're telling me? Okay.
And I know one of the gentlemen, he was a representative, he had driven up from Springfield, his name was Butler. That's the only one's name that I remember. And the reason I remember that is because I lived in Springfield and there was a Butler who worked wherever he could. So and you know what, I think one of the gentlemen from DeKalb, maybe, or Barbara. What? Barbara Gunn. Was Barbara there? Yes. Okay, a state representative was there. I'd forgotten about Barbara, one of our state representatives.
So noon on a Sunday. Okay. The majority of the hearings were held Tuesday through Thursday, between 10 and 2, in the middle of the workday, when most people could not attend, were only in one language, didn't have any other translation services. Some of them were online, some, which then discriminated against those who did not have access to any technology to watch them via Zoom, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. And you typically had a 2 to 3 day notice that the hearing was coming. That's it. In your hearing, you said you did not see the map, you saw it later.
You know what? If I would have had a laptop computer or a smartphone, I still have a flip phone. So I think that they did have maps on the computer, did they?
And how soon after your hearing was the map passed?
You know, I can't remember.
No,
I can't remember.
I'm messing with you.
I can't remember all my kids' names.
I understand. It is all good. So the reason why I'm saying that, because typically what happens, if you actually saw a map, that usually means that the hearing, the vote to pass the map was up to that week. If you met on a Sunday, on that Tuesday, they're not going to be voted on.
Yeah, I saw there were several maps,
Of course,
floating around online.
yes.
So
Which one was it?
I'm not sure.
That works. That sounds all right.
And after I saw the one that was permanent, I still wasn't sure.
If you went to Springfield to go to the map room, it's not listed in the directory of the state capitol. There is no map room. There never has been one. It's wherever the party in charge decides to meet, and they meet in secret with their chosen few who are going to draw the map. Now, that is horrible. What makes this more horrible? Can I say horrible? I want to make a word. If you have a rookie legislator, they're at the bottom of the web versus someone who's been in office for 12, 15, 16 years. They get the pick of what they want in their district. And you're a rookie, 22, 23-year-old who wants to devote their life to public service and doing good, you get what's left. So some people then become more valuable than other people here in the state of Illinois. That's how. That's not right. That's not right. But this is the way Illinois has done this, right? And the ringleader of this wonderful system for the last 30 years has been whom?
Exactly.
Rightly or wrongly, how you feel about it doesn't matter. Fact is the fact. He got together with his lawyer and a few other people in a room, drew the state, senate, and representative districts, and then drew congressional districts with input from those who had seniority. So what do you want in your district? What do you want in your district? Who do you want in your district? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The party in charge has always done it that way. Right? That's the way it's happened. That is gerrymandering. That's why we've got to get rid of it. Part of the reason Rory is in this room, because he's exceptionally talented, he's exceptionally intelligent, he's very wise, and he knows the system very well. Because in Chicago, we had something called the People's Map, where the people got together and drew the 50 wards that we had to draw in response to the census data. They had to report or have these hearings with 13 commissioners. An independent commission of 13 individuals from across the city of Chicago were selected to cross the city and have hearings to collect all this information and testimonies on people said they want their wards to look like. And then once they collected that data, they then had public map drawing sessions. They actually drew ward maps in front of the people and came up with something called the People's Map. Rory was one of those 13 commissioners. We had hearings, collected testimonies, and drew maps in public and passed the map. And then took that map to City Hall to the city clerk's office to have it introduced and hopefully attempt to get 10 older people to sign on and support this map so the people of the city of Chicago can vote on it. And we got none. Not a single alder signed on to our map. They stay loyal to their caucus or their caucuses. Right? That's what happened. The people actually did it. And if you all want to ask Rory some wonderful questions about that, or just, Rory, do you want to speak to that process a little bit?
Sure. I can speak to that process a lot, but let's keep it quick. I think for us, we weren't special people. We weren't elected officials. We weren't lawyers. We weren't computer programmers. We were just regular citizens that said, hey, we want to do this a little bit differently. We've got to imagine there's some better way to do it. And we did. We did it like the model would be, right? Getting community input, listening to people, not just giving them their 3 minutes of airtime that they're legally required to have and then never listening to them, but taking on their feedback, asking them to clarify if there were something unclear, saying, hey, we want to hear what your community of interest is, right? We look at communities of interest in your own words, because that's what matters. And it might be, hey, we are a group of people at this congregation at this intersection, or we're a group of Filipino immigrants who speak Tagalog and we visit businesses in this corridor. People are wanting to give this feedback and know what the issues and concerns that they have in their neighborhoods. They're very capable of teaching you about what matters and where they're at. It's possible to create a system that puts that in the driver's seat. That's what we did at the Chicago Advisory Redistricting Commission. That's what happens in not every independent redistricting commission, but the best set up of independent commissions in states and other jurisdictions that do it this way. That's the goal. That's what we're aiming to have here in Illinois. It can be done, and the People's Map showed that it can be done.
Thank you, Rory. Lack of engagement, lack of transparency. These maps that are drawn, the last district map, not the current. The old districts were drawn in secrecy. No one saw them until it was time to be voted on. Again, the hearings took place when most people could not attend the hearing. Testimonies that the few testimonies they did collect It is not in our Illinois Constitution or the code for this process that they have to be adhered to. So you're sitting in a room testifying, and you have an official sitting there nodding, great. They don't have to put that information to an email. They're not required, right? So they go back to the secret room. So it doesn't matter what you all say in the public hearing or your testimony, and they draw the districts based on what is needed. Let's look at some proof. It was determined that our process was unconstitutional. Someone actually sued. Anyone want to guess why? Yes.
Well, your group was not representing everybody.
Group was not representing everybody. What else? Because COVID. There had to be an undercount. The data that was finally used, we couldn't trust.
Aurora was undercounted by 20,000 people.
Illinois said, we're going to keep going in. Shut up. And they voted and passed maps anyway. And later, based on this lawsuit, the maps were deemed to be unconstitutional, but too late. They both voted on the cap. Now, in tradition of Illinois and Chicago, once the U.S. representative maps were voted on and passed, your state representative maps were voted on and passed, your state senate maps were voted on and passed, and the Chicago, Illinois ward maps were voted on and passed. Guess what the U.S. Census said a week later? Whoops. Illinois is the leading state for an undercount in the U.S. Census. They admitted it for the reasons we enumerated earlier. But the maps were voted on and passed in law. Nothing to do about it. It was only after our map was passed in Chicago, because then everything was locked in. They admitted it. You all have been locked out of the process. All right? The people of Illinois have been locked out of the redistricting process. We say no more. Can't happen again. So we, Change Illinois, the Redistricting Collaborative, and similar organizations are starting right now to get ready for 2030, which means we can't wait till 2027, 28, 29. Right? Can't wait. Cannot wait. What if there's another pandemic? Right? So we need like-minded individuals who care about the shape of their districts, who care about the services and resources that come from their district, to participate in redistricting work now. Even just to talk about at your Thanksgiving table. Man, it sure was fun filling out that census form, wasn't it? You know what? It sure was. I can't wait to do that again. That's what we need to start doing. All right? Kids who are 8 years old now will be how old in 2030? Voting age. Just practice how to spell the census. Use it in the sentence. Can I get a word origin? Right? We got to make it comfortable. Right? That's step one. Fill out the census paperwork. Because regardless of how we determine an undercount, people actually move, fill out paperwork, or filled out paperwork and then turn it in. All those mean the same thing. They didn't get counted. Doesn't matter. Right? So we have to start demystifying and demything the U.S. Census and getting our communities and our partners and our friends used to filling out this information. That's step one, right? Because we can't keep being locked out of this. This is a rough timeline of what happened. So from June 4th, 2021 to June 28, 2022, we got maps in a year. Right? We got maps in a year. Let's see, anything in particular I want to highlight. August 31st of 2021, Illinois State Legislature approves new state legislative maps in a special session. Short notice, need a basic form, pass anything. Kind of challenging for non-Springfield residents to attend. Right?
Even the legislators sometimes have trouble.
Yes. Sometimes they do. But usually the party that's in the majority somehow finds a way to get on that Amtrak train, that Greyhound bus, drives that car, takes that private jet down real quick. They find a way. Let's see here. Anything else I want to point out? Governor Pritzker signs the second set of maps into law. When Roy and the other commissioners drew the maps for Chicago, they had 3 drafts.
I mean, the first draft, the second draft, and the final.
Yep. All in full public view. This one only took 2 for the state of Illinois.
How many people were in your group?
We had 13 commissioners, and we also had 4 alternates in case, in the event that a commissioner wasn't able to serve. So out of about 500 people who applied to serve on this commission, there was a selection committee of 4 people who were respected, thinkers, faculty members, community leaders who helped sift through all of the resumes, selected 13 commissioners, 4 alternates, and those commissioners were meant to have and did have the racial diversity that reflected the city of Chicago, the geographic diversity that reflected the city of Chicago, not all coming from one neighborhood, range of generations, range of ages, and all different backgrounds.
So you did the ward maps?
So we do the ward maps, yes.
So did you have somebody from each ward?
Is that what I was going to? Yeah, we did have people from each of the north side, south side, west side, multiple perspectives, not all crammed into one neighborhood. We have over 400 and close to 500 testimony from all wards. Sure.
Now these next slides, I promise you, are not great artwork of a kindergarten class. This is the work of our state legislature. These are the maps, some examples of some districts that have been drawn into law. This one right here, that is 2 blocks. This is 2 blocks wide. That's 2 blocks wide. This is a 3-hour trip from if you live here to the district office. Right? This wonderful shape here. And I'm going to show you why this is so much fun in a minute. That's one of our districts. Here's some more. Any of these districts look familiar? Do they hit close to home?
Not too close to here.
Okay, just want to check. This is my favorite. These 2 are my favorite. This set of 3 is my favorite. What is this? How do you get from here to here? In this wonderful yellow district?
Yeah.
You see this? This is St. Louis. This is the Missouri-Illinois border. And this here is up by roughly Champaign, past Champaign or Mountain. Now, y'all really want to have some fun? This yellow fits in this space in this bluish green color. I kid you not. Wow. So, this is one district, different district, back to the original district.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm on the King County Board, and I help with the redistricting of the King County districts. And sometimes it's very difficult to balance your people of color with, to get the right number of people and the right number of people of color. And sometimes you have to scroll all the way up to, Champaign. There could have been the balancing of the BIPOC communities to try to do some of this.
So that is true. I can't say absolutely true, that is true. How do you protect the communities of interest, people of color, right, to have fair, equal opportunity to elect individuals from their community, and still avoid this?
Okay,
There's got to be a better way.
it's hard.
There's got to be a better, it is challenging as who knows what. But this, we gotta do better than this. Because never is the answer, I will represent who I represent. Never is the answer, I'm not a farmer, but I want to represent a rural community because I have to in my district. Or I am a farmer and I don't know anything about the city, but I'm going to learn so I can best represent them. That's never an answer. The answer is let's just draw some stuff that's crazy. There's got to be a better way, right? And the reason why there has to be a better way is because of the history and tradition of Illinois. The people can't trust this. It would be nice to believe that that is the only reason why. But if there is a multi-million-dollar development here, I don't want them to have it. If someone is fundraising for me here, then I want to cut them out. Because that has been our tradition and history. The people can't trust them. Or don't trust them. That's the challenge, right? So what do we do about this? What do we do about this? Why should we care? Well, this is why Change Illinois and the members of the collaborative want you to care about this process. If you care about food deserts or food insecurity, you should care about redistricting. If you care about educational equity and access, you should care about redistricting. If you care about women's health issues, you should care about redistricting. Infrastructure. I said someone earlier, Chicago flooded with that last rain and you had a hailstorm, we got flooded. This flooded neighborhoods. These are neighborhoods. These are feet and gallons of water, right? If you care about gun violence, taxes, the environment, you should care about redistricting. Why? Because if you elect someone, care about the environment, who is, I don't care about the environment, I want big business and factories. And I draw out people who do care about the environment, and guess what you're not going to have? Environmentalists, right? Right? If you have a member of the NRA who's running for your seat or running for your district and loves guns, and you love guns, then you got your person. But if you don't, you can be drawn out. And that issue will never be part of the discussion. Women's health, education, food inequity, all of them, taxes, right? It's not just about the monies that come back to your districts. It's about the type of people who represent you. If gerrymandering protects individuals who do not have your interests at heart, then you will not have a district that serves you. So these are a couple of quotes from this great professor we use, Dr. Robert Vargas from the University of Chicago. He has made a correlation between your districts, gerrymandered districts, and violence and lack of resources. Again, protected individuals do not have to work hard in their districts. Protected individuals do not have to work hard in their districts if they're gerrymandered. That's basically what he's saying. Politicians are choosing their voters versus their people choosing their politicians. Right? That's not the way this thing is supposed to work. It's not the way it's supposed to work. So, Change Illinois, the Redistricting Collaborative. We have a solution. We talked a little bit about it today with Chicago and Rory. We want to bring the same model to the state. Create an independent commission, where individuals such as yourself from across the state of Illinois get together and draw districts, totally removing elected officials from the process. Officially. Now, with the People's Map Project, the alders could have attended the map drawing session and could have attended the hearings. And they could have talked to their people too. None of them have the courage to show up. None of them have the courage to show up. So in theory, we could have elected officials come to the hearings of the independent commission. They could not be on the independent commission because we write the rules and regulations of who could be a commissioner, right? Can't work for the state, can't be related to someone who works for the state. If you ever worked for the state, you have to be out for a certain amount of years, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are other rules that are written in as well, right? Because you still can't discriminate, but some people just cannot come in immediately. So we have an independent commission. Draw the maps in full public view. Have hearings in multiple languages. Do in-person and virtual sessions. Right? Give enough notice of your hearings. Collect their testimony. And then be held accountable to the testimony. And the map drawing sessions in your hearings in the map drawing sessions. Be accountable. Right? It can be done. We can do this. Other things that we thought about. A hiring commission with residents and lawmakers. We're not bullies. We'd be willing to work with some elected officials in this process, if that's what it takes. As long as the majority of the commissioners are the people and not elected officials. Right? Maybe have an advisory commission recommend maps to lawmakers. Okay? Have an independent demographer. Someone who's not affiliated with either party, either house, any majority party, who has nothing to gain from how the maps look. Okay? Strengthen the Illinois Voting Rights Act. Make it very clear how we protect communities of interest and people of color.
Chris, to go back to what I said before, because I don't know if I was right or not, I don't think communities of interest is written into the Voting Rights Act.
No, it's not.
Okay.
True report. No, it's not. Fix the pull from a hat part of the Constitution. Who knows what that is?
It's a form of dismissal.
Dismissal?
Well, I mean, or a way to silence any concerns as far as pulling whatever part of the Constitution and saying that that is the solution that gets to the problem.
Sure. But this is related specifically to redistricting.
Okay, sorry.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Should I call Rory and pick one? Sure. Rory, tell us what pull from the hat.
There's like this
In case of a tie.
stopgap thing where if they're deadlocked and the Republicans say this, and the Democrats say that, and it waits a certain number of days, blah, 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 blah. It's written into the state constitution that they will just pick a map from a hat. I think they did this once, and they actually used, in a nice Illinois Land of Lincoln twist, Abraham Lincoln's stovepipe hat to pick the name of the tiebreaker vote, which doesn't really strike me as a great way to run democracy.
It is in our Constitution.
That's embarrassing.
If there is a tie, and the tie is not broken over a certain amount of days, names go into a hat, we pick a name, they break the tie. It is in our Constitution. I should just stop that. Huh? Anyway, so other things we're trying to do. I try again to improve the process to stop last minute map reveals and votes and remove the congressional districts from the equation. Removing congressional districts is something we're willing to negotiate. So there are 3 maps that the state passes: your state senators, your state representatives, and your US representatives. If we can get the other 2 out of their hands, we'll let the state people shape the US district. Compromise. But we're trying, right? We're trying. So can this work? Besides Chicago, which I know everyone trusted our Chicago system, right? Everyone trusts that. Can this work? Yes. California, you know, them hippies. They did this. As big of a state that California is, they have an independent commission. What did not change? The number of districts and the people per district, and the majority of the political party in power. Again, negotiation. What did change? Fairer representation. Elections got more competitive. Elections got more competitive. More diversity in the elected officials who ran and won. People know who their elected officials are more often. They became familiar with them because they knew who was running from their districts, right? And incumbents no longer can rely on easy districts and have to run for re-election on their record and I can't talk anymore. On their record and their marriage in the next elections. In other words, they gotta work, right? Because we took away their guarantee to win. But, you know, that's California. They're nuts, right? You think it work right here? Michigan did it too. Michigan did it too, in a little bit different way. They created a more balanced and impartial map drawing process. No one party can hold all of the cards, right? So it doesn't matter which of the majority. They make this good equal. Michigan was the first state to guarantee seats for independent and those not affiliated with 2 major parties. A seat to the Green Party?
How would you do that?
They did it.
Well, I know you said they did it, but how did they do it? I
So
don't know how you can guarantee, I mean, every election you have some surprises, sometimes there's shocks.
right.
Because, but how would you guarantee that an independent would be the winner?
They did not guarantee that an independent would win. They made the elections extremely fair, and it made it extremely challenging for those of the 2 major parties to guarantee victory. And they also ensured that the threshold for someone to run from one of the other party.
Okay, the threshold for a third party or a independent would be less than what it is now. This is not always.
Everybody should be.
Okay, but it'd be everybody, not just.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is for people who specifically sit on the independent commission in Michigan.
Correct.
Some are people who have taken the Republican ballot in the past. Some are people who have taken the Democrat ballots in the past. But on that 13-member body.
Okay, we're not talking about the state
Right.
okay.
We're talking about the commission.
You're talking, yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that was on that page.
Okay.
Because that's very,
I'm sorry.
it's very unclear. It sounds like, I'm like, how would they ever guarantee us?
You'd have to gerrymander a lot.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
So it's done in California. It's done in Michigan. How do we make this happen here in Illinois? This is what you can do. Invite me, my lovely face, and my nice suit. Come and do a presentation to your group, whatever that group might be, to demystify and demyth this process, right? to let people know if there is a way they can be involved. Follow us, send us emails, text messages, Facebook messages, etc., to get more information, and we will come back, just like I did in Aurora. I was in Peoria last week. I'll be in Rockford and less than a month. I'm crossing the whole state telling everybody about this, right? So I'm glad to come back. Begin census education and training sessions to prepare for the next one. Talk about the census at the dinner table. You know, get a copy of the last census form and practice filling it out, right? Let's get folks used to this process. Educate friends and neighbors on the importance of the census and research what's being done in your district. Right? Research is being done in your district. What's the population shift doing? Who are the people running for office? Right? What do they stand for? What do they mean? Who's giving them their money? I do some research. Right? Start doing that research now. Contact your city, county, or town, village representatives and find out what their plan is for the next count. Now, many of them will tell you, well, we just finished one, I'm going to be bothered with it. Or they will tell you, I don't even know who want to run again for 2030. What's your plan? Because we have to be under count. How many did Aurora lose? 20,000?
18,000.
18,000? What's the plan? To avoid that from happening again. Right? So there are things that can be done starting today that we need you all to do. So, I have multiple targets. It is 5 now. Allie is smiling. This is where you all talk back to. Questions, comments, concerns. Who thinks that an independent commission can happen? Would you be willing to run for an independent commission? Do you know some people who might? Do you want to change Illinois to come back? So we got to keep this thing going. And then, of course, questions online. Miss Allie, you have your hand up. Ooh, there's questions online. Okay. So I'll shoot anyway. Let's go. Let's start online first.
Okay. If I may say one, would you please kind of paraphrase it? The speaker is in the front for the online audience. So one question from Zoom is, every map cycle, there's a group of people advocating for empirical mapping, computer-generated exercises. Is it feasible, at least as a starting point?
For me, it all depends on the amount of data that is submitted in the beginning. If it is only counting numbers in terms of numbers of people, that is a little limited. It needs to include what type of people these are and other demographical data about these people. So it is a great place to start, but the algorithm is going to need a lot more data input in order to be more trustworthy and authentic. But it is a way to remove the subjectivity from the process. But unfortunately, as was mentioned, some subjectivity will be needed because the descriptions of race, ethnic, gender have all changed in the last 10 years. And they'll probably change again in another 10 years, right? So that has to be taken into account.
And the communities of interest.
Yes, and communities of interest. Yes,
Would you like a question from Facebook?
sure.
What legislation is being proposed to fix the Illinois system? Arizona, California, Iowa, and few other states have a better process. What simple language that will survive legal challenges in Illinois? Now is the time before the current leaders are too close to the process. What is the timeline in Illinois?
Oh, that's a lot of questions. So first answer is none. Unless I'm wrong, Roy, there's none.
Nothing concrete.
Nothing.
Session.
Right. So there is no legislation right now in the state of Illinois, but that is why Change Illinois and our redistricting collaborative are working hard now to have some legislation ready at least by 2027, 2028, so that we can make that a question that is asked of candidates at that time and get it ready for the 2030 process.
Another question from Zoom. It seems a giant step forward in Illinois would be to abandon the declared primary and ultimately move to a ranked choice model. Could that get us closer to fairness?
Ooh. Voting in that regard and district mapping, I think will be two separate issues. I do believe, and Roy, I know you can speak on this as well, ranked choice voting is something that is being tested right now, or actually being implemented right now in Evanston, as a test case. Would it happen in the state of Illinois? Probably, if we can get that passed. But again, that's going to require some major changes to our constitution. And I don't know if our elected officials will stand for that. That would make the election process more fair. And then I guess the thinking being, if that is not more fair and we can't change or implement the independent commission, then we have fairer elected people who may make fairer maps. I think that's their supposition. I can't guarantee that. Rory, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and Change Illinois is also a proponent of ranked choice votes. I think, as David says, right, the districts determine who can run for a given race. So having ranked choice voting is good. Fair redistricting is also good. It's about looking at the full, state of play, if you want, and understanding that there are many different ways to get these kinds of reforms. No silver bullet exists, but thinking of them as working together is a good way to start thinking about a fairer democracy. The Evanston case, Evanston and Berwyn, which I visited through on my train on the way here, are examining this November, 7 weeks from today, at the general election. They will have a ballot initiative to decide whether they, as a municipality, want to adopt ranked choice voting in subsequent elections. Elsewhere in the U.S., ranked choice voting is in Alaska. It recently filled a House U.S. Congress vacancy. Mary Peltola is now going to D.C. And also the state of Maine that runs their elections through ranked choice voting. So it's unusual. It's definitely not the norm, but it is starting to crop up in different places in the U.S.
Question in the room, yes, ma'am.
You said a statement a minute ago that is in my head, which is our elected officials won't stand for it in regard to something, I don't know what it was, but in this whole change in how we do redistricting, why would they vote against their self-interest?
Well, the theory is that just like with Chicago, if enough people scream, holler, yell, email, visit, protest, march, and are actively engaged in this process, they will have to respond, right? And it may come to the point where we only elect individuals who want an independent commission. It may have to come to that. It may come to that one single issue. Because you're right, we are talking about removing a process that protected them for decades, centuries perhaps. The people, if you want change, you have to make it happen. And we have to cross this state and organize and plan and execute how we're going to make that happen. If people do not want an independent commission and you do something about it. Now, to be fair, it took California 10 years to get their independent commission. But they got it, right? So we're looking to do the same thing, hopefully sooner, but faster, but we're looking to do the same thing. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. He has a hand up first.
Are you considering trying again with the getting enough signatures to have a public amendment that got defeated on a 4-3 vote by this Illinois Supreme Court? And if the Supreme Court should change, is that a possibility?
Getting signatures is an extremely challenging process between those two options, signatures or having the legislature make the change. Because of the number of signatures required for to get a referendum, and then again have it knocked down by the Supreme Court, was extremely frustrating, especially, well, the Fair Map Amendment made the ballot, but we did not win that particular fight because of some language issues. I believe. Don't quote me on that. But short answer is, we're looking at changes to the law. and not through petitions and a referendum for signature. Because that is extremely harder path to go. And we do believe with the new crop of elected officials, hopefully in November and in Chicago in February, independent commissions is something that they know about. Independent commissions is something that they have to take seriously. And hopefully we'll get a few more who are on our side and willing to do something about it. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
It seems like there's many states, and I'm not sure of any of them, maybe Georgia. There's some states where they have a Democratic governor, but a Republican dominated legislature. And it could be the opposite, of course. Does that mean there's gerrymandering? Because if a governor will get elected, let's say a Democrat, that means that a majority of voters in that state wanted a Democratic governor. And if the legislature is dominated by Republicans, then that means the majority of voters did not get their voice right, heard correctly.
Not necessarily. In those instances where when an executive is of one party and the legislature is dominated or has a majority of a different party, that typically means that the executive is more moderate than the party that they're in.
Yeah.
That's typically what that means.
Okay.
Redistricting and gerrymandering protects state legislatures from the people that they run against. It does not really protect the government because they have to run statewide regardless, right? So it particularly only protects those individuals who have a district or a ward that they're running. Yes, ma'am, my friend.
Oh, I have a question probably for Corey. Do you feel that the aldermen in Chicago, when they approved their own map, took any of your suggestions to heart when they redrew that? Do you feel like they listened at all?
No. There was the hope that just by us being there would sort of put them on their best behavior. And that was kind of the attitude, I think, in the beginning. There was even people who had sort of previously said, oh yeah, we support independent redistricting in theory, came around and said, oh, well, no, this is not the cycle to do it, or I've got other stuff to worry about. One of the worst wards is the 36th ward, and it follows Grand Avenue in Chicago for about 3.5 miles. And it's 3.5 miles long, and it's not more than 2 or 3 blocks wide. And that is widely seen as being a map drawn to punish a specific incumbent alderman for not going along to get along, giving him a really hard district, a really tricky district that you're supposed to, if you're responding to the 55,000 constituents that live in that ward, you have to fill their potholes or provide city services to them across a very, very incompact district. Mostly out of political pique and spite, and to punish people from sort of stepping out of the line. I mean, it really is that egregious, the extent to which, as David was saying, seniority runs the table. That's where the existing power play is at, and if you step away from that, the consequences can be big.
So they are having what I would call a mass exodus from
They sure are.
City Hall,
Right.
aldermen.
Yeah, so they drew this crazy map and are now making someone else's problem. Yep.
Correct. They did steal one thing from our map, though.
Okay.
That we were very proud of. They did steal one thing. So now in the city of Chicago, there is the first ever Asian majority ward in the city of Chicago. We were the first map to propose that based on the population and numbers that we saw.
So see, your work wasn't all in favor.
That's true, I'm getting a
Yes.
bit
You
cynical.
need to be a little more optimistic.
Yeah.
You're too young to be a pessimist.
It's the Chicago one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's true, and to be fair, the Asian American community, of which, you know, there's about, close to 10% of the city of Chicago is Asian American. Because you're balancing compactness with continuity and communities of interest, we were able to say, I think partly because the Asian community in particular did great work around educating different communities in many, many different languages around the importance of filling out the census and sending the paperwork back. They were able to go around and say, hey, look, we have the numbers where you can draw a ward around the Chinatown area. It's not just Chinese Americans, but Vietnamese Americans, many different language and country of origin groups. You know, we are advocating for this, we are pushing for this. Because the People's Map process, the Change Illinois process was wide open, and we were soliciting feedback, and people could do that. We were first out of the gate saying, hey, look, here's a legal, US constitutionally compliant ward map that includes an 11th ward around Bridgeport, around Chinatown, that is 52% Asian American. Every subsequent map after that was able to have that there, partly because you made a lot of noise and agitated for that, the work of the Asian American community in that neighborhood, were able to do that. But one individual, a guy named C.W. Chen, I remember him coming and testifying at a hearing. He had been working on something like that for 20, 30 years. It was a long-term project, and this is not to diminish the incredible community organizing that they did, is to turn around and say, why should the barrier be that hard to have your voice heard? Surely there's a way of doing it better than just enriching and benefiting the incumbents.
Any more questions? Was that good?
I have surveys that we'd like you to fill out about tonight's presentation, but I'm going to take away Tanya's thunder and say thank you, Damon, so much. We really appreciate it. It's been a long time.
Once again, as we close out, I'll send around for extra questions. If anyone has anything, thank the League of Women Voters for our area for having us here and co-hosting with us. Thank you to the Aurora Public Library for having us here, making this space available. And just thank you all for coming here tonight on this great Tuesday evening to have this wonderful conversation dialogue. Hope we gave you all something to think about. I'll leave this up on the board here. So research, we hit both of these two links to the research. One, the Change Illinois website. The other one is the Chicago Wards website, where you can see how the Independent Commission, the Chicago area, Chicago Redistricting Commission actually work. We have all the videos, the map drawing sessions, testimonials are online at that first website. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. If you want to follow the Chicago Advisory District Commission, their information is still there. We still have it up. And lastly, Change Illinois' contact information, and then my email, Damon Smith, is at the very bottom. So I'll leave it up for a while. Again, thank you very much. Get home safe, sound, and stay healthy. And we'll see you again for the next election cycle. All right, and census. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.